welcome back again to the Vegas Dice Kings here. We got me, Pat Pending. I got Danny Krebs, and listen here, we got a real nice guy here, Johnny Law, and I tell you, we're going to have a great show. And of course, I got to give a big welcome to WWDBTV.com for Johnny Styles. How about that?
Hey!
Listen now, before we get really involved in all this, I want to give out our Gmail. So people, please, out there, please write into us. Anything, write it down. If you forget, start sending it in to the Vegas Dice Kings 22 at gmail.com. Please send us your emails. We'd love to be hearing from all you folks out there. So like I said, that's Vegas Dice Kings 22 at gmail.com. Danny, is there anything you'd like to...
Well, I'd like to say that Johnny Law is no longer just a guest host. He's a permanent host, like the permanent my wife got at the beauty shop last week.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh, my God, she was making waves and curls. Oh.
Well, are we scraping the bottom of the barrel, or is this this
right.
is a great thing, right?
Yeah, this is... Are you kidding? It's a hair-raising experience. Yes. Johnny Law he's got some topics and discussion that... It'll probably take until the year 2035. That's when
true.
Social Security's supposed to run out.
Yeah,
That's right.
He's taking us all to a new level for us.
So now, if I'm going to be part of the show, we want as much material as possible. And like Pat said, email stuff in. Because one little tidbit, after a few people start talking about it, everybody's going to add a little this, little that. So basically, since I'm here for a while, I mean, I'm talking about going as far as maybe we can have themed weeks one day. So we're going to talk about today some of our favorite stuff. But those of you who are watching, even if you weren't in the business, you know some other people, Las Vegas, anywhere in the country. You got grandfathers, grandmothers who used to come to Vegas. We're going to have all of these stories, and they are the things that every one of us wish we would have wrote a book about, because just like the implosion, these stories are going away. And that's my big thing. That's my passion. My passion, over 45 years, I've been in Las Vegas now. I loved every day. I used to love going to work. Back then, when you went to work, it wasn't just it had potential to be a life-changing event every single night. And honestly, that's how it really was. So I'd like to have more, some input from viewers with the email and stuff there, even phone calls. We have, I'll give you my phone number. But we just want some input. But in the meantime, enjoy. So here's a direction I'd like to get, where we can maybe start talking about themes, because each little thing we're going to talk about has a million stories. So originally they were doing a radio show a couple of years ago before the pandemic, and I did a radio show. And I kind of thought all along it was really based on just something small, for table dice dealers. But it's more than that. It's a way of life. When I say table for table crap dealers, a lot of people who weren't in the business, whatever, don't know what that is. So what we're talking about is back up until about 1987, just like today, the 21 dealers all put their tokes in a box. End of the shit, they counted, they divided up so many ways, how many dealers there. But in the old days, before 87, craps was called table for table, which meant you have one crap table. You have four guys working there. You see the guy with the stick, and then you see the other guys, the other dealers there with the money, and they're doing all that. And then you always have a guy on break. You rotate around the table. So, for example, table for table, a guy tips you $500 on a Saturday night, okay? If he tips the 21 dealers, there's probably, out of all three shifts, 250 dealers, okay? Guy tips you $500, everybody gets $2. If you're on that dice table and that guy gives you $500, you have $125 because you split it 4 ways. Going back, I mentioned last week, we used to have what you call layoff. You take care of the bosses around you. So what I'm saying, that $500 went a long way in the dice bin. It went to the dealers. The boxmen had sat on the game back then. For some reason, the joints got rid of them. Too cheap to do that, I guess. I don't know. And the floor man, so everybody was happy back then. Going back to my passion for Las Vegas, I honestly feel that the dealers in the 70s, early 80s, we were part of what built Las Vegas. We were there. We each, especially crab dealers, we had guys that came on vacation to play on our game that night and just had this insurmountable amount of fun. And these guys had a lot of money. I felt like we all were part of it. My passion, Las Vegas, goes on to this day. When they talked about opening this stadium, I got in there day one. I'm a day one guy. I want to be part of the history of the stadium. I'm with I work over at T-Mobile with the company over there with the Golden Knights. So what's the coolest things in town? You got the Raiders, you got the Golden Knights, I work with them. You got the Smith Center. If you ain't been to the Smith Center, you live in Las Vegas, you got to go. We're starting to have Broadway shows and everything. I work down the Smith Center. The Clark County School District. I've been involved with the school district since my daughter, she's 38, since she was in kindergarten. I've been involved with the school district. I was PTA president at every one of my kids' schools. We'll talk about that one day. But I'm involved with the school district now. Something's been going on for over 45 years. Spring Mountain Ranch, they do plays every summer. Super Summer Theater. I work there in the summertime. I volunteer. We got 3 plays this summer: Mary Poppins, Sister Act, Matilda. I'm talking about all of this stuff, why Las Vegas is so great. I mean, even beyond the casinos. I had a tour company for about 10 years. Took people out to Red Rock, hiking out Valley of Fire, Grand Canyon West. We're going next week. There's so much to do. We're going to talk about that. Going back to audience participation, you got the email. I mean, I'm literally asking you to take notes when you're watching our show. You have input, you're part of this, you're important. You're important to us, and you're important to the rest of the audience. So we want to hear it. So, so what I'm talking about is something like, so on Facebook you have, I grew up in Vegas maybe, or something like that. That's what I'd like to get, where we have a lot of input. We'll talk to the people that do that Facebook. And if you have any other ideas of how we ourselves on the show can get a little bit more participation, I mean, we have a lot to talk about. So what I'm going to say today is, it's kind of new, I want to talk about if we have a themed week talking about stuff. This way maybe people be more tempted to throw in some stories. So for examples, all right, with regards to the dice dealers in the old school, which is kind of like the heart of the show, or anybody. I'd like to hear stories about who was your favorite stick man over the years. Being a stick man on a table for table, you were like the conductor, man. I mean, you ran this game. You had these guys right next to you. You had the call. You're the one who set the motion of the game. And if you got a big prep game with hundreds of thousands on a table, and you got a great stick man keeping all this going, who was that guy? Even if he's not around no more. Maybe one of you guys who worked on his crew had some of his calls, and you know what I'm talking about. I would like to hear crap dealers stories about who had the best hands, okay? The best hands. It sounds like nothing, but right away when I started at the Horseshoe, okay, because I started at the shoe, fortunately, which made me a great crap dealer. I learned about a guy's hands, where you go watch a crap table, go anywhere, watch a crap table. Some of the dealers, kind of basic, a little sloppy, but there were guys who just, it was smooth. They put these chips out all the time. They took care of every player, and this was the heart of it. And I call those guys with great hands. And it was, being a crap dealer, those are the things that you used to love to watch. I'll say probably one of the guys at the Horseshoe, greatest hands ever seen, his name was Zan Hassan. So when you're a crap dealer, you're always fixing your stacks. He always kept his stacks a little tilted, you know what I mean? Just little things like that. But, he never made a mistake. So talk about that. There are guys, even in 21, who were money makers that you know. Tell us some stories about guys who made money. When I started at Bally's, it was only their first year, so the MGM was still fresh in everybody's mind, and there were still a lot of crap dealers there from back then. And with what I'm talking about, one of the dealers who stuck out most there was Brad Golden, and his little thing was humana, humana, humana. You hear humana, humana, it's time to go out. All the bosses are cool, they're on the take, it's time to go. And then just thought of something that, and I never had to do it, but crap dealers, with regards to bosses who were in on it or not, it was a science where, going back to the stick man, if there was a boss whose heat in the pit, when the dice roll, the number is 6. Number 6. You hear number 6, don't do nothing. The heat's on. But you hear the stick man, point of 6. Boy, we're back to point of 6. He says, point, go ahead. You got the green light. So it's all these little stories that the crap dealers would mostly know. But like I said, I'm talking about even the 21 dealers. I seen a lot of 21 dealers who were good at making money. A lot of girls. I tell you what, it was frustrating at the end of my career. A lot of these young kids, if you just say hi to a person and bullshit with him at the beginning of the game when he buys in, I mean, if everybody did that, you make money. It's all these little things, but it was part of our life doing that. I mean, when we went home to the grocery store, we were still crap dealers, That was just our way of life. So, and then one last thing I'd like to hear from some of the old dealers, who was the biggest Georges? So George, you hear the term George. George means he was a guy who tipped, all right? This word, whale, I never heard it. Nobody ever heard it. That wasn't a word. That's something new that either TV or something, you'll never hear us use the word well, because that wasn't a word. It was George. This guy's Super George. Some of our Georges, probably most notably, was Kerry Packard. This guy owned all the media in Australia. His house was so big, you had to have a golf cart to go from one end of his house to the other, I heard. But he was an amazing man. This guy would lose $22 million and still tip me $1 million. He tipped these kids $1 million. We had an old school guy, Jimmy Shagra, a lot of history. What a great, great story. We'll talk a little bit more about Jimmy Shagra out of El Paso.
And don't forget, when you worked at the shoe, there was a world famous Nick the Greek.
Nick the Greek, too. Yeah. We had a bunch of them down there. Oh, I'll tell you, a name just popped to me from Caesar. Ira Gertz. Do you know Ira
Gertz? Do I remember him?
Sure.
He, when I broke in at the Horseshoe in the very beginning, there was this guy come down, and we learned about the word stroker.
Oh.
And that's a guy, more than even winning and paying, he wants to make you suffer. Yeah. Anyways, I thought of his name the other day, and I wanted to keep it talking about the old, but we're talking about the good guys. We're talking about the Georges. There was a guy, I never dealt to him. He's at the Venetian and some of these other places. And with regards to these casinos, I worked at Caesar's Palace when Harrah's bought it. You know, Harrah's a good company, but you go from the #2 brand name in the world to Harrah's, it was culture shock. I give them a lot of credit for what they're trying to do with these places, but everybody knows when the town, the business is all different now. So, anyways, with regards to the upcoming shows, I would like to have a couple theme nights. Maybe if we have a theme night, people would have some stories or something. And what I'm talking about is some of people's favorite joints. I mean, where did you like, because everybody pretty much has worked several joints. Back then, it was true. People used to say when I first started, well, if you get fired, you go across the street. And that happened to me at the Horseshoe and the Nugget one time. I mean, I got fired, went across the street, got a job. But with regards to your favorite joint, a lot of old school dealers would have preference because you work at 4 or 5 joints, and although they were all the same, they were very, very different. Just from, the way they treated you to how they fed you and morale, stuff like that. There's a big difference in these places. So anyways, anybody has any stories about joints you worked in, places you like to go, tell us about it. All right. What about your best bars and bartenders?
Boy, that'll open
right?
up. That should open up a lot.
Everybody has favorite bars, right? But I mentioned in the first week, back then, we only had so many bars. The town was small. Each joint had their own place. Like I said, DI, I think, went to the Flame. NGM went to the Village Pub. Sahara, we went to Cattleman's. But some of the other bars where everybody hung out was Port Tack. A lot of people hung around the Port Tack. You had a little bit of view of the city there up on Sahara where it goes up the hill.
Bartender named Pepsi.
Yeah, Pepsi.
Yeah, right.
Pepsi.
That's right. Yeah.
Sure was. Charlie Pape hung out there.
Right. Exactly. Well, like I said before, I was at Flame one time. Frank Sinatra come in, sat at the bar next to me. But I'd been in town long enough. It was just another one of the guys. It was like one of these guys coming in. We were talking about Hush Puppy. I believe the owner passed away not too long ago.
Yes.
Hush Puppy out there on past Rainbow on Sahara there.
Charleston.
Yeah.
Yes.
Used to have a view of the strip from there, right? So that was a lot of people went out there to have dinner and have a view of the strip. What about Bob Taylor's?
Bob Taylor's, right?
I mean, that was like driving to California to go to Bob Taylor's back then, right? Now, I went out there, the back of it is up against the frickin' 215.
Yeah.
These are the things that shock some of us, seeing this kind of stuff. But, and bartenders too, probably one of the most famous, John. When he died, his funeral was, it was like a gala event. Everybody was there. Everybody knew him. Other bartender, I'll tell you, bartender who I helped out a lot because he started as a busboy back at Carlos Murphy's. So I got a couple people jobs at Carlos Murphy's. One of my girlfriends got a job there. I liked it there. Carlos Murphy's is where we found Tommy Rocker. Tommy Rocker started at Carlos Murphy's. There was an artist. I want you to look his guy up. He passed away. His name was Denny Dent. And I have a new appreciation because I teach art at UNLV now. Denny Dent, his show is called Denny Dent and the One-Fisted Art Attack. So he would play a song by this artist and he would paint him on, but he would start from the opposite, the way you would finish a painting to the beginning. So it was real interesting because you never really saw it until it was done. But this is the kind of stuff you saw at Carlos Murphy's. Anyways, I'm talking about Gary Milliton. He was there, and then he went to Alias. Alias Missing Jones was probably my favorite spot because it wasn't so much a bar. It was more like a pub, and it was a little bit different. Good food. That's where your maitre d's, showgirls, hung around, and so you get bartenders like that. Kelly was at the Cattleman's. There was a kid, Vincent, dispensary. We had my boy was in town a month or so ago. We went out to the runner for the night, played shuffleboard, pool tables. I used to shoot pool. I used to get in tournaments over there. Rum Runner's still around. You had the Suburban Lounge, Suburban East and West. So, if you got any stories about any of these places,
Sure.
What was your favorites?
Well, mine was My Place.
My Place.
It. You had the Jungle Club. You had the Clam Digger. Oh, we tried to hit them all.
Right,
as
right.
many as we could run into. It was what was interesting when you get off work, you'd go into a bar, and they knew you were coming down. They had all the little shot glasses upside down, sitting in front of you. So when you come in there, you'd already have 10 drinks set up for you.
That was a good
that was the
bartender.
shot
That's how these
glasses.
bartenders
That's
were.
how they made their
Right,
money.
yeah,
Boy, I tell you, they were
it was kind
spot
of cool.
on. Yeah.
So if you got any stories on bars or bartenders, I'd like to talk about restaurants. All right.
Oh.
Some of my favorite restaurants, and I'll tell you, we were just talking about it, the Bootlegger. Bootlegger is still going, and Bootlegger is basically still the same. You have lounge acts, they got dynamite food. If you haven't been there for a while, go ahead down there. The Hush Puppy we talked about. Hush Puppy had a view of the Strip when we went. Billy's West had a view of the Strip. To think there was a view of the Strip from the Hush Puppy, but there was. It was a great place.
Absolutely, they did.
Unfortunately, I got a ton of memories. Everybody does. Charleston Lodge. I was sick to my stomach when I saw that burn down.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I was out of town. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff
Going up
that,
there and sitting around that fire pit all the time.
it was just
having a
beautiful.
few
It
drinks.
was beautiful, man.
It was iconic.
Yeah.
Summer and winters for the snow.
And they had the Doomkoffs used to play up there.
Right.
Doomkoffs.
And they were good. They were good.
Yeah,
They
too.
were good.
Yeah,
And
Doomkoff did a good
everybody
show.
got involved. It was fun.
2 different times I went up there after work, was snowed in. We didn't get to leave for a day back then. And, that's just the way it was.
That's the way it was. You're right.
I like going to Alpine Village. Was good. You really had 2 restaurants at Alpine Village. Most people like going downstairs, get the peanut shells on the floor and stuff.
Rat Skeller, yeah. They had the best chicken soup in the world there.
Oh, dynamite.
Well, one of the places I frequented after I went to UNLV, I graduated in 1970. 1971, I dropped out of UNLV. I just was too much of a player and not serious enough. So my friend got me a job as a dishwasher at the Village Pub in 1971. Next door to the Village Pub was Cheverini's, that little deli. But the Village Pub used to be famous for their Tom Jones sandwiches and their chicken noodle soup. And just about everybody hung out there, from the old MGM to all the strip joints to showgirls. I mean, they'd be passed out, and I'd go put them in their car or in the supply trailer and let them sleep it off.
But yeah, Alpine Village is an
another
example
one.
of a spot that's right there by the Hilton, and a lot of people who come to town. So if you know people out of state, the older people who came to Vegas back then, I'm sure everybody went to Alpine Village back then. We're going out to dinner to Chicago Joe's tomorrow. This place has been there since I got in town 50 years ago. It's a little old house down on 4th and Charleston. Been there forever. Same amount of tables. Delicious Italian food. Chicago Joe's. Chateau Vegas we would go to.
Chateau Vegas.
Right?
Best abalone I ever had in my life.
Right? Yeah, Chateau Vegas was dynamite. People don't remember, or I hope you do, the Vineyard in the Boulevard Mall, right? But they give us all you could drink wine. That didn't last for long. They quit doing that after, but it was great. It was like a buffet. The
Yeah,
Vineyard
you had
was dynamite.
another snow-in night, huh?
Yeah, right, yeah.
Don't forget Gianni Russo's place, State Street.
State
when
Street,
he was
their
going with
commercial
Diane
center.
Carroll and all the celebrities that would hang out at State Street. My dad, when he was a dealer at the Dunes, used to hang out at the Plush Horse.
Oh, wow.
That was on Sahara, on the corner.
Yeah, right there. And that commercial center, they just opened a coffee shop there. I'm hoping that, all right, so real quick though, with regards to downtown, I broke into Horseshoe. I've been a downtown guy my whole life. especially being an artist now, seeing the renovation and the arts district downtown, I just love it. But talking about the way these places are going to have a comeback, I'll give you a prime example. When I had money, I had a condo down in Gaslamp in San Diego, and it used to be a bad area of town. Now, I mean, Gaslamp is the spot down there. Yeah. So this commercial center, these guys opened this new coffee shop. I haven't been in there. I'll probably go in the next couple of days. But, you know, the old school Vegas people, get out there a little bit and do stuff. I'll tell you what I tell my students every semester. Spend an afternoon on campus. All of you who live here, if you've never been to UNLV on a campus, get out there. Go have lunch at the Student Union. They got restaurants, they got food there. They got the Barrack Museum. Go look at our library. It's a 7-story glass atrium. It's beautiful. We have a new school of we got a new school of medicine. We have all the shows at Artemis Sam, Judy Bailey. You got Doc Rando. You got the Black Box. There's always stuff going on. Performing arts at UNLV. Take a walk around there, look at it. It's dynamite. Go get some at the bookstore.
That's almost like if you're in the casino where you work. Check out your casino. Most of these dealers don't even know about their own place.
Exactly
that they work
right.
At. They have no clue. Have you been here? No. Have you been there? Why not? Go check it out.
Well, I remember back when you worked in a joint, they kind of didn't really want you there. A lot of joints were like that. But, you know, it's all different now. And even if you're one of the people now that you don't like the way it is now, whatever, that's the way it is. The joints are there. Go be part of it. You don't have to go blow money or nothing. Go look at these places. This is our heart. This is where we're from. So, talking about the implosions, got some good stories with the implosions. I'll start bringing my photography in. I'm open at these photos. Will maybe prompt a few people to maybe get a little involved out there. I got a story with the dunes. So my wife and I, when we started planning our wedding, we were originally at the top of the dunes, and we were about 90 days out from the wedding, and a guy called us. We were like one of the first people to know they're going to implode the dunes. I didn't even know what they were talking about.
That they're leaving you on top.
Yeah, right. We had to go switch locations for the wedding. So we got a whole bunch more to talk about. We're going to finish it up this week. I hope you guys enjoy this. There's a lot of good stuff, and we're going to start taking calls, maybe some Zoom appointments and stuff. If you have an interest in sharing any of these memories, listen, man, I don't want all these memories to be gone just like the implosions. So, like I was telling these guys, if you were a table for crap dealer, then you are at least 66 years old. If you only dealt one day, because that was how long ago it was. So if you were a table for table crap dealer, you're 66 years old. In the next 10 years, I don't want all these stories going down the tubes, man. No. There's so much cool stuff. We'll talk about. Yeah, we got a whole lot more to talk about. You guys,
Johnny Law is correct. When I stayed downtown for 4 years, and I was uptown before I went downtown because my dad got me a busboy job at the Dunes Hotel in the Savoy Room in the summer of '67, and I stayed there off and on until I was 21. In between, I went to broadcasting school, but that didn't pan out like I wanted to. I wasn't making enough money because tip jobs of any nature, you were making money. So when I went downtown, I stayed downtown for a long time, and my first strip job was at the Stardust. And the first day that I worked, I made $1.50, and I thought I was the richest guy in the world. And like Johnny Law says, and patent pending, the adrenaline rush, I couldn't wait to go back the next day. Tell him.
That's the way it was. That's just the way it was.
All right, so closing here. This is the greatest. This is table for table, okay? So if you're working in a joint, you got a 250 average, right? So I'm working at Sahara, I got a 250 average. We go 3 days in a row where we make nothing. These other guys are pissed. I think it's the greatest because according to the math, we're going to make 1,000 tomorrow. See what I'm saying? You got a 250 average. I loved the days when we wouldn't make any money because you pick it up one day. My biggest was, I don't know, whatever. I know there were guys at Caesars make 28,000 one night.
I made a blank on New Year's night. We blanked because we had a table that was set up for a big player just for him. He didn't show.
Never showed. That's
but
how
everybody
it was.
else is just knocking
That's
the money
luck of the
down.
draw, though,
And
right?
we're sitting there like, but the next day, we knew we were going to be right there.
Right there, right?
So,
right.
Johnny's Law is right. When I finally made the big show at Caesar's Palace, the dream job that every crap dealer wanted to be in. It was called Dealer's Palace back then. And everybody was in. And you know what? When they had all these iconic fights, the Allen King tennis tournaments, you made so much money, it was ungodly. I mean, I used to call up the starboard tack and get lobster to go. Who does that?
Yeah.
Not too many Mexicans.
No. And that's where timeshares. Remember all the timeshares?
Yeah.
See,
The
that
Jockey
all gotta
Club.
come out
The
too.
Jockey Club.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Johnny Law's hitting it on the head. You wanna be a part of the history and the present and even the future. Call in,
Now get
email
hold of
us.
Please email us. At Vegas Dice Kings 22@gmail.com.
Patton Penny,
That's,
20 years. 20 years at the Tropicana and the stories he knows. At the Aladdin, when the Detroit mob and other guys were in there, and how it was, and how everybody carried themselves. The guy in the cage, Sam Diamond, who used to be in charge of the money.
Yeah, that's true. He used to sit up there and watch the whole layout. It's definitely different now. I'm glad to really be a part of what happened, but I'm like Johnny Law said. Please email us, call us. We would love to hear from everybody out there because the stories, we do not want these to go by the wayside.
Johnny's a historian.
The day I knew I was a good dealer, we'll talk some stories about Teddy Binion. Teddy was the greatest. He's a good guy, man. So one day, and I had been here for a couple of years. I didn't go to Sahara yet, and I know I was a good dealer. Teddy come in, and he called us God's crew. He said, you guys were handpicked by God himself. So after that, we were always table one. We were God's crew, and, just little things like that. But,
Yeah, you guys were God's crew, and we were the Motley crew.
yeah, we had a little bit of everything. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's not that crap dealers felt superior to 21 dealers or whatever other dealers you were. We just felt that we were the show. You had the stick man. If you went to a casino and closed your eyes, all you could hear is the crap dealers singing out the numbers, getting the people involved. That was the show.
Like a heartbeat.
Yeah,
it was
the
a
heart-
show.
heart-
and we were the show.
We were the
the
show.
show. You went to any bar and you said you were a crap dealer. Oh man, let me buy you a drink. It's unbelievable.
Absolutely. Yeah, we performed.
Unbelievable.
We were entertainers ourselves, that's for sure.
We got more stories than I am tall. So
All right.
Yeah. Hope to hear from you guys.
Everybody,
Please.
thank you. You
Wrap
have a
it up,
wonderful
Pat.
day.
All right.
Thank you very much.
keep them dice rolling.
Yeah,
rolling,
right. Keep
rolling
the bones
bones.
going.